You know, 33 years ago, I accidentally fell in love with Joe Biden. You know, 33 years ago, I accidentally fell in love with Joe Biden. You know, 33 years ago, I accidentally fell in love with Joe Biden.
So one day I was asked out on a date from out of the blue. And that evening, a handsome young senator showed up at my door. So I opened the door and there was Joe. And I took one look at his perfect suit and his leather loafers. And I thought, thank God it's only one date.
How did you guys meet?
Well, actually, we met through Joe's brother, Frank. He was in college when I was in college. And he suggested to Joe that he ask me out. So he called me, you know, blindly. And I thought, okay, well, you know, he might be interesting to go out with.
Mm-hmm. Did you know much about him?
I knew a little bit, but, you know, I was in college. I was studying English. And so he came to the door with a suit, leather loafers.
Ooh.
I thought, oh gosh, this guy's going to be kind of stiff. But it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I went in. I can remember I went upstairs. I called my mother at 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, Mom, I finally met a gentleman.
Fascinated by this story that he basically got his eyes on you when he saw a picture of you in an advertisement. Is this true?
Well, part of it is true. I had met him once before, and but we were in a crowd, and it was at a fundraiser, and so then I guess he saw my picture somewhere, and he said, "Oh, now that's the kind of girl I'd like to date." And I knew his brother, so his brother said, "Oh, I know her," because I was in college at the time, and his brother was there, and so Frank called me and or got my number, and Joe called and said, you know, this is Joe Biden, and would you like to go out? And I went. I remember going upstairs and calling my mother at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I said, Mom, I finally met a gentleman.
So let's see, we started, it was almost like a blind date. Joe's brother went to college with me and suggested that Joe ask me out. I thought, thank God this is only one date. But I ran up the stairs. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, and I called my mother and I said, Mom, I finally met a gentleman.
Jill Biden is a liar, and she might be Jezebel in the flesh. She did not meet Joe Biden on a blind date. She met Joe Biden in 1972 when her husband at the time was friends with and giving money to Joe Biden for his campaign. And Jill met him at a fundraiser for that campaign. Of course they already knew each other. Of course he didn't see her picture in an ad on an airplane. And his brother just happened to know that model and have her phone number.
So let's start. I had read that back in 1972, during the campaign celebrations, when Joe Biden won his first election to the Senate, you visited the celebration.
I introduced Joe to Jill in '72.
I fell in love with her when I saw her.
Jill Biden's ex-husband says there's much more to the story, claiming Jill and Joe's relationship actually started when he was still married to Jill. It was a blind date, point blank. Is that story true?
No, not even a little bit.
Bill Stevenson, the founder of a popular local rock music venue called the Stone Balloon, married Jill when she was just 18 years old. According to Bill Stevenson, both he and Jill first got to know Joe Biden when Biden was a county councilman in Newcastle, Delaware. Stevenson asked his help obtaining a liquor license. So you were friends with Joe Biden?
Oh yeah, not only that, I threw a fundraiser for him in August, raised between $2,500 and $3,000. We got married in '70. I introduced Joe to Jill in '72. Right before the election in '72, Jill, Joe, Nelia, and I were in his kitchen. How do you forget that?
That would be 3 years before that now famous blind date. Stevenson says his first inkling something was up came when Jill refused to go with him to meet Bruce Springsteen, who was booked to appear at the Stone Balloon.
She said, Joe asked me to keep an eye on the boys. And I just thought to the back of my mind,
Jill was babysitting Joe's kids, Hunter and Bo, while Jill was still married to Bill. Come on, man.
Then one day, he says a man came into his bar and asked him to pay damages for a fender bender that involved Jill.
Joe was driving when she wrecked the Corvette. She didn't wreck it. Joe wrecked the Corvette.
he looks at me and he says, "Oh, she wasn't driving." I said, "Her beloved Corvette, she wasn't driving it?" He goes, "Senator Biden was driving it." And I went, "What?"
Did you confront Jill at the time and say, "What's going on here?"
Yes, I did.
Did she admit to it?
She didn't say anything. She just looked at me. I said, "You got to go. You got to go get your own place." I was betrayed by the Bidens. Joe was my friend. Jill was my wife.
I can remember just, looking around, and suddenly I saw this woman coming through the crowd, and I realized that it was Nelia, Joe's wife. And so I walked up to her and I shook her hand and I said, "Congratulations on your win." And she said, "Thank you very much." And then that was it. I mean, that was our exchange. But
The irony, though, is amazing.
there is a lot of irony. I agree with that.